Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to World of Warships Legends. I don't think I've done a voiceover in quite a bit. It's just been like little meme videos and just streams. But we had this game, the Pobeda, and if you saw my first stream with the Pobeda, I got really frustrated with it, on top of some like lag and that kind of stuff. But then I just kept playing it because my thing is, no, I personally don't like carriers in the game. But if I'm going to critique something and if I'm going to try and call something out, I want to at least be able to know how to play it. So usually whenever a carrier comes out that I think is going to be pretty good, I try to play it. I did that with Parsival and Pobeda. I originally thought that Pobeda was good versus bad players, and it definitely is. It's the ultimate like noob killer carrier. Like it's it's pretty ridiculous. And I wasn't having too much success with it the first day until I kind of just kept playing it, and I was just like, you know what? Dang, this thing's actually pretty strong. I don't think it's as strong as Parsival was on release, but in terms of carriers go, I think it's I think it's pretty up there. We take 12K off of the Z35. Now, obviously, the Z35 had his AA on. Don't know if many people probably know about that. It just came out, so if people weren't paying attention to the patch notes, destroyers can now turn their AA off. They can toggle it. And why is that useful? Well, it allowed me to see that Z35. I didn't spot him, but I saw his AA, and you pretty much, it's just like a tracking device towards your destroyer. So things like Shimakaze has a usually less than 3 kilometer spotting from air distance, but Shimakaze also has 5 kilometer AA. So if you're trying to be sneaky with Shima and there's a carrier in the game, your AA is technically going to spot you from the air at like 5 kilometers because like, oh, there's some AA coming over there. I know that's a destroyer. So whenever you get the chance and there's a carrier in your game, you want to turn your AA off to avoid being spotted. Now, obviously, if you are being spotted by the carrier already, turn it on. But yeah, Pobeda. All the strikes at once. Your plane HP is pretty weak, and your skip bombers are probably the name of the game. I think you should probably be using skip bombers probably 70% of the time. They're just so consistent. Now, I come over here, try to get lightning, because I know Black Priest over here is on my game, and he's over there, so I figured I might as well come over here and try to help him in the engagement. The only problem with Pobeda getting back over there is the plane speed. You do have the jet assisted takeoff, which gets you up to about 230 knots, and you can get about 7 kilometers away from your carrier. But again, the plane speed, aside from that, is 155 knots, which is quite slow. And it's the reason why I hate playing Lexington, because Lexington's plane speed is like 145, I think, something like that. And the reason why I loved playing Parsival so much, because the plane speed was like 190. So it's much easier to traverse the map, and excuse me. So I decided to kind of let Priest do his thing over there, just because I'm not going to be able to come back over there. It would take me so long to get over there, and I'm hoping that him and a Summers can kill a half-health lightning, and he does. So we made the right play there. Actually decided to go into B because we saw it was getting captured, and we reduced the Fletcher to about nothing. The skip bombers versus destroyers are insanely good. However, they are very easy to avoid. Very easy to avoid. And that's the biggest thing, the reason why I don't think Pobeda is that overpowered. There are going to be times when you cannot dodge a carrier. And that's mainly the reason why I think carriers are dumb. Just because any kind of damage you can do to a surface ship, if you time it right, there's situations where surface ships just can't avoid damage. You know, they're either having to angle towards you, or they're having to angle towards a surface ship. So surface ships against carriers are kind of just damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I'll tell you what, Pobeda really loses influence when there is less people on the floor. We get to hit the Richelieu there, we flood him, and now we're coming back in with a jet-assisted takeoff to try and light some fires and help this Belfast out. But if people are chasing after you and they are coming at you bow on, there's really not much Pobeda can do. if you're the only target left in the match, it is very easy to either turn in towards the torpedoes or just turn towards the side where the bombs are coming. But since the Richelieu has to focus on the Belfast here, we get a flat broadside to launch or drop these bombs, and it's pretty much just a dead Richelieu. Double fire right after the double flood. And I'm going to say, I think the thing that makes this ship probably, in my opinion, one of the best carriers is how efficient the bombs and torpedoes are at stacking damage over time. The torpedoes seem to flood like no one's business. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, there is times when I will be dropping torpedoes, and if the ship doesn't have a damage con ready and it's not active, it's on cooldown, and you hit 6 torpedoes in Pobeda and you don't get a flood, you need to be asking some serious questions, because I feel like I don't know. I don't have the statistics for it, but it feels like 90% of the time, if you hit those 6 torpedoes or even less, you're going to get a flood, which is great because then you can come back and stack a permafire or a permaflood. And the bombs, when you strike from the side of the ship, they all land in perfect places to light fires on broadside targets. You're going to have bombs that are going to hit. If you hit all 6, the bombs are going to be hitting on the stern, the midsection, and the bow, which is where all the fireplaces are for ships. So there's been so many times where I've just hit like double fires, triple fires, all that kind of stuff, and it's really, really efficient. Now, we're going to be struggling in this game. This game is actually a very unfortunate game, but it's probably one of my most cracked carrier games. And again, this was the second day of me playing it, so I still was figuring some things out. We have to get the Gorizia out of here just because I knew he was the one that was going to be spotting us down there. And that's one thing that's iffy about the Pobeda, is your base detection range is 15 kilometers, and you're spotted from air with concealment mod from 10.8. So this thing is spotted from the moon, more or less. We ended up getting a pretty lucky drop on the Gorizia there with a little blind drop, get a permafire, but it's not going to be enough to kill him. And at this point in time, it was probably worth my time to try and drop fighters over our friendly destroyer, but I'll tell you what, man, fighters are very annoying. It's one of those consumables that works half the time, and the other time they just look stupid. And I'm going to get pretty desperate in this game, especially when we're about to drop this Tirpitz. I figured the Tirpitz would turn to avoid the torpedoes, but I time it a little bit too late, and you can see me kind of like, no, I shouldn't do it. And then I was like, I'm already here, I might as well try and strike. He starts turning that way, and then he immediately cuts it back in. So I'm just like, well, damn. I believe Priest gets a fire as well, so that was kind of a pointless drop. And that's the biggest thing with Pobeda, is it's very easy to get deplaned if you're not careful. Like, if you're taking all this time to drop your ordnance and you're losing planes and you're not getting damage, you're not doing anything significant, you're going to have some pretty lackluster games in Pobeda. But for the most part, just like Parsifal, you can easily go for destroyers and kind of just make them almost useless. This thing is very, very strong against destroyers. Again, I do think it is pretty easy to dodge. If you turn in, the torpedoes have, I think it's a 1.5 kilometer arming distance, which is a lot. And the torpedoes are slow. I'm running the base commander with Fishy and just the torpedo speed buff. So I think my torpedoes travel at 44 knots, 43. They're very slow. So with the arming distance and slow torpedoes, it's pretty easy for even battleships and larger cruisers to turn into them and avoid the torpedoes as a whole, because if you hit them before they arm, they just die out of the water, and there's nothing to do. Priest unfortunately goes down. Again, there's a Belfast over there, but there's just so many things over here that were drawing my attention that were about to compromise my detection. Kind of like this Gorizia over here. This is going to be a problem, because it's not the fact that Gorizia can kill me, it's what his teammates can do. And you're going to see the NCs coming over be there, and that's a problem, because NC is very close to getting in range. And I kind of want to help stall C because we have a York who I don't know what he was doing over here this whole time, but we need to get at least one of these flanks secured. And you know, this is definitely an oof of a game. But we end up again. Theresa turns in. We get two lucky hits, but again, like I'm saying, he turned in. We were very lucky to actually hit him. If you turn into these towards these bombs, it's very easy to dodge them. Unfortunately for him, he got a fire on him, and this was when I was just like, man, this is nuts. We go for the blind drop again, figuring he would turn all the way out. We hit 3, do some damage, and light up permafire. And since he just used damage con, and since he was on such low health, I know that he's going to be dead. And we are not done with the blind drops. There's going to be, I believe, one more where we actually get to smack the Belfast pretty good. Next problem is being spotted by the carrier within North Carolina that can really ruin me. Now, the good thing about Pobeda that's kind of ridiculous is it does have a 30mm deck, so that means if it is turned in towards you or if it is running away, if you're not aiming very, very precise enough and you hit the deck with any kind of American 406 or any 406 for that point, it will seemingly just bounce off the deck. There was one time where I was running away from a Kansas and a Vladivostok, and that's a lot of shells downrange, of shells that can really hit me. But I was completely turned away, and as long as they don't hit me right under, you know, right at the stern or right at the bow, I mean, they shot like 3 salvos at me like twice, and like twice only got more than like 3,000 damage, so the deck is very meme-worthy. Again, we get a flood on the NC, and he is pretty much just being prepared to get bombed right here with some permafires. Aiming a little bit in front, we kind of just want to smack all the way around the ship, and we get a double fire and some damage. I know that's a perma double fire, so we don't have much time. I opt to have to go for other targets. The Parcel is so far away. Again, being in a spot, being in a spot to actually take advantage of the jet assisted takeoff and get to targets back quickly is the name of the game of Pobeda, and we get really scared here. I thought the game was over there, and I was like, should I go for the NC and risk him getting another shot off? But I was like, you know what? We don't really have time. We have to do some damage. So it's looking pretty dire here, but I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it. This game's over. They're winning on points. I'd have to... There's no way I could be able to kill these guys. NC, fortunately, goes down. Get some skip bombers in on the Belfast, and we actually hit them 4 times and get a double fire. So yeah, don't give the skip bombers broadside in this thing. I mean, it is ridiculous, like actually ridiculous. I figured at this point in time I could also go for the carrier. I mean, I think at this point I decided that this game was over. We ended up picking up Clear Skies as well, but overall, the more I play Pobeda, the more I'm just like, man, this is actually kind of nuts. I mean, the amount of damage that your torpedoes can do is ridiculous. You can take about half the HP from a carrier on the first strike with your torpedoes and almost guarantee a flood. Now, again, I was still learning how to lead these torpedoes, which is honestly very difficult. It was a very annoying process to learn how to lead these torps, and I have a feeling that it's going to turn a lot of people off. Again, we only hit 3 there, but that was 15k. You had 3 torpedoes, flood right off the bat, and it's a flood. Like I'm saying, the torpedoes flood so often that it's just crazy. Going for the Belfast again, probably not going to get much done against them, but we do end up getting another double fire. So the damage over time on this thing, if you can stack it on targets, is absolutely ridiculous. Do I think it's overpowered? I don't know. There's been a lot of games where decent players or people that are paying attention can avoid pretty easily, but overall, it's a carrier, so it's pretty strong. 2,300 on a loss in a carrier was probably one of my best games. Unfortunately, the team couldn't do a little bit more, but yeah, that was going to be the Pobeda. Let me know what you think, guys, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.